I wrapped my legs around him like I had wanted to for months. My fingernails clawed into his back as he gripped my hips and thrust me against the edge of his mahogany desk. His breath was hot against my neck, his fingers firm, unapologetic. I moaned, not because I loved him, but because I hated someone else. Right then, right there, I slept with my boss, James Walker, a man I barely knew, just to destroy the one who broke me. And for those 30 minutes, I felt powerful. I felt in control. But the moment he zipped his pants back up and turned away like it was nothing, I realized I had started something I would not be able to stop. Welcome back, my beautiful people. I want to first appreciate every single one of you who have subscribed and supported this channel. You are the reason I find the strength to keep sharing these twisted pieces of my life. And for the new and returning viewers who have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that button right now. Your support is the fuel that keeps this channel burning with raw truth and wild energy. Be sure to drop your thoughts in the comments as soon as you hear this chapter. I need to know how you feel about what happened next. Now, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Alyssa. I am 28 years old, born and raised in Pennsylvania, but I have lived in New York for the last 6 years. I have a solid career in marketing, work for one of the fastest-growing luxury lifestyle brands in the city, and up until last fall, I thought I had a picture-perfect life. My fiancé, Chris, was 31, handsome, intelligent, and seemed devoted. He was the kind of man who would remember anniversaries, send flowers to my office, and cook me dinner in nothing but an apron. He had the soft voice that melted me when I was stressed, and the patience of a saint, or so I thought. Then there was James Walker, my boss. 43, tall, broad-shouldered, a man of few words and many rules. Everyone feared him. Everyone wanted to impress him. No one really knew him. He had an edge that turned heads in every room. I had worked under him for 2 years, and though I had always noticed the way he looked at me, long, calculated, heavy with something unspoken, I never thought I would cross that line. Not until Chris did. It started one Friday night. Chris was in the shower when his phone lit up beside me on the couch. I had never checked his phone before. I had no reason to. But something about the name flashing across the screen stopped my breath. It said, Chloe, Jim. Underneath it, a message preview read, same time next week? Your hands had me shaking. My blood went cold. I sat there, stunned, staring at the screen. He had told me he was meeting up with his trainer 3 times a week. He had become more toned in the last few months, his confidence growing, his mood lighter. I thought it was the endorphins. It was her. I opened the thread. Hundreds of texts. Photos. Hotel bookings. My heart crumbled as I scrolled through weeks of lies and lust. I saw a video of him kissing her shoulder, whispering something into her neck, her giggling, naked on white hotel sheets. I felt bile in my throat. He came out of the shower, towel wrapped low, smiling at me like he had no idea I had just watched my entire world collapse. I did not scream. I did not ask questions. I simply told him I needed to go into the office. I kissed his cheek and left. My hands were shaking as I drove, but not from sadness, from rage. The office was quiet. I swiped in, went up to the 22nd floor, sat at my desk under the dim security lighting, and stared at the ceiling for 10 minutes. Then I heard his voice. James. He was still in his glass office, jacket off, tie loose, sleeves rolled up, typing something on his laptop. He looked up at me, eyebrows raised. I walked in. Closed the door behind me. Locked it. He said my name, concerned, but I did not let him finish. I walked around the desk, stood between his legs, unbuttoned my blouse, and whispered the truth into his ear. Chris cheated on me. And I needed to forget. He looked at me in silence, his jaw tense. Then he pulled me to him, mouth on my neck, hand in my hair. He did not ask twice. Neither did I. The desk was cold. His breath was hot. I did not cry. I did not speak. I just let my body burn away the humiliation. Afterwards, I sat on the floor beside his desk, fixing my skirt, buttoning my blouse with shaky hands. He handed me a glass of water, his face unreadable. He asked if I was sure I wanted that. I nodded. He said nothing else. I went home that night, crawled into bed beside Chris, and stared at the ceiling until morning. The next few days were a blur. Chris kept up the act. Sweet, charming, pretending everything was normal. I smiled at him over dinner, but I was replaying James's touch in my mind. Every single time. I thought it would be a one-time thing. A reckless moment of vengeance. But it was not. I started dressing bolder to work. James noticed. He never said anything, but I could feel it in the way he looked at me in meetings, the way his fingers lingered when he handed me reports. Then it happened again. In the conference room. Late at night. After a pitch meeting. He bent me over the table, hand over my mouth, as if the entire city could hear me from 20 floors up. I did not love him. I did not even like him. But I needed him. Because every time I touched James, I erased a little more of Chris from my body. But what I did not know was that revenge does not come without consequences. And soon, they would come for me, harder than I ever expected. I used to think revenge would feel good. I thought it would lift the weight off my chest and let me breathe again. But the truth is, every time I left James's apartment, I felt both victorious and violently hollow. The sheets smelled like sex and sweat, and for a moment, I would feel like I had taken back my power. But then I would sit in the cab, staring out into the New York night, and ask myself what kind of woman I had become. Still, I did not stop. James did not ask questions. He never asked about Chris. Never asked why I showed up at his place past 10 with fire in my eyes. He just opened the door, took my coat, pressed me against the wall, and made me forget for hours. That silence between us became the most addictive part. I did not have to explain myself. He did not have to pretend to care. We used each other. And it worked, until it did not. The first real crack came on a Sunday morning. Chris was making pancakes in the kitchen, humming to some terrible 90s song he loved, when I felt my stomach turn. Not from nerves. Not from guilt. But because I had not slept the night before, I had been in James's bed until 3 a.m. Chris leaned over and kissed my cheek, and all I could think of was the way James had pinned my arms down just hours before, whispering how tight I was as my body trembled beneath him. I excused myself, went into the bathroom, and stared at myself in the mirror. I did not recognize the woman looking back. My skin was pale. My eyes were wild. My lips were raw from being kissed too hard. I was unraveling. And the worst part? I wanted more. It was not long before Chris started noticing. I could see it in the way he watched me from across the room. His eyes lingered longer. He started asking where I had been, why I came home late, why I had suddenly started wearing lipstick again. I lied. Over and over again. Smoothly. Easily. I told him work had picked up. That we were closing a campaign. That my boss had me running around in circles. That last part was not a lie. James had started calling me in during odd hours. A Saturday afternoon to help him review presentations. A Thursday evening to discuss ad budgets that could have waited until Monday. And I always said yes. One night, we were at the office late again. It was raining. Everyone else had gone home. I was in the conference room, rearranging slides on the big screen, when James walked in and shut the door behind him. He stared at me like he wanted to say something. But instead, he walked up to me, reached out, and tucked a strand of wet hair behind my ear. His touch lingered. I stepped back. For the first time, I hesitated. He looked at me, confused. I told him I could not do this anymore. He blinked, as if he had not expected that. I told him it was getting too real. That I could feel him in my bloodstream. That when he kissed me, it no longer felt like revenge. It felt like something else. He said nothing. He just stood there, eyes locked on mine, chest rising and falling, and then, for the first time, he kissed me gently. Not like the other times. Not with fire. Not with hunger. But with something close to tenderness. And that terrified me more than anything. I went home that night and cried myself to sleep. I did not cry for Chris. I cried for the girl I used to be. The girl who believed love was enough. The girl who thought loyalty was rewarded. The next morning, my best friend Tasha showed up unannounced. She had a key. She always had. She walked into my apartment, sunglasses still on, holding 2 cups of coffee and a box of donuts. She sat me down, took one look at my face, and said the words that made my heart stop. "You are sleeping with someone." I froze. She knew me too well. She said I had that look. The messy glow. The scattered energy. The guilt in my throat. I tried to deny it. She cut me off. She asked if it was someone at work. I said nothing. She put the cup down, crossed her arms, and asked me flat out if it was James Walker. I stared at her, stunned. She knew. She had always suspected the chemistry between us, but she had never said it aloud. Now she had. I broke down and told her everything. From the night I found the texts to the moment I pressed my body against James's desk. She listened. Quietly. No judgment. When I finished, she said something that shook me more than anything else. She said I was hurting myself more than I was hurting Chris. She said revenge only works if it ends. And I realized, I had no plan to end it. That night, I turned off my phone and tried to be present with Chris. We ordered Chinese food, watched an old movie, and he wrapped his arm around me like he always did. But something was different. I did not feel disgusted. I did not feel angry. I felt pity. He was smiling at me, making jokes, trying so hard to be sweet. And all I could think was, how broken must he be to pretend this never happened? The next morning, while he was in the shower again, I checked his phone. He had deleted the messages. But I found a hotel receipt in his email. Dated just last week. He was still seeing her. All this time, I thought I had the upper hand. But he was playing me the whole way. That is when I snapped. I packed an overnight bag. Called out sick from work. And showed up at James's penthouse without warning. He opened the door, surprised. I walked in, dropped the bag, and told him I was done pretending. I did not want to use him anymore. I wanted him. He laughed, not cruelly, but like he could not believe I had just said that. Then he said something that stopped me cold. He told me he was married. Separated, but married. I felt the world shift under my feet. He said he had not told anyone at the company. That his wife had moved out 8 months ago. That they were still sorting out paperwork. That it was messy. I asked why he never told me. He said because I never asked. I sat down on his couch and stared at the skyline. Everything in my life was built on half-truths and pretty lies. I was engaged to a man who made love to another woman in hotel beds. I was sleeping with a man who still wore a ring he kept hidden in a drawer. I was drowning, and no one could see it. Then James sat beside me and said something I will never forget. He said I was not broken. I was just angry. He said anger is just pain in disguise. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself feel the pain. I cried in front of him. Ugly, shaking, breathless tears. He held me, not like a boss. Not like a lover. But like someone who had broken too. And in that moment, I realized I was not in control anymore. This was not revenge. This was war. And I had just picked a side. When you play with fire long enough, you stop fearing the burn. You start craving it. I had reached a point where I did not care who found out. I had nothing left to protect. Not my engagement. Not my image. Not even myself. After that night at James's penthouse, something shifted inside me. I stopped pretending. I stopped lying to myself about what I was doing. This was not just an affair anymore. This was a spiral, and I had no intention of stopping the fall. I called Chris the next day and told him I needed space. I told him I was staying at Tasha's for a few nights to clear my head. That was not a lie. At least, not completely. I did spend one night there. But the rest of the week? I stayed at James's place, naked under silk sheets, whispering my darkest thoughts to a man I still barely knew. He told me about his wife. Her name was Meredith. A cold woman with a perfect face and a cruel tongue. They had been together for 6 years. Their marriage had died long before the paperwork. He said I reminded him of who he used to be, reckless, alive, hungry. He said that with me, he felt human again. I wish I could say I felt something romantic when he said that. But I did not. I felt powerful. Like I had taken something from someone else for once. Not just given and given until there was nothing left of me. But nothing that burns this hot stays hidden forever. It all came crashing down on a Thursday. I was in a staff meeting, tired, sore, distracted, when our office manager walked in with a pale face and a trembling hand. She whispered something into James's ear. His face froze. Then he looked at me. Something in his eyes broke. He stood, walked out of the room, and I followed. Out in the hallway, he handed me his phone. There was a video. Sent from an anonymous number. It showed us. In the office. In the conference room. His hands under my skirt. My face turned upward, eyes closed, mouth parted. My heart stopped. There were security cameras. We had been recorded. He said the footage had been leaked to HR. Someone had sent it directly to the board. I could barely breathe. He told me to go home and wait. That he would fix it. But I knew the truth. This was not fixable. I went back to my apartment that night, and Chris was waiting for me. He sat on the couch, arms crossed, jaw tight. He had seen the video too. Somehow, it had made its way to him. He looked at me with a kind of disgust I had never seen before. And then he laughed. Not because it was funny. But because he had finally won. He told me he had known for weeks. He had followed me one night. Seen me enter James's building. He had not said anything because he wanted to see how far I would go. I asked if he was the one who leaked the footage. He smiled. Said he could neither confirm nor deny. Then he stood, grabbed his keys, and walked out. I never saw him again. But the damage was done. The next morning, I was called into HR. They were polite but cold. Said the footage violated the company's code of conduct. That even though I was not under direct threat or pressure, the relationship created a toxic power dynamic. James was not in the building. They said he had been placed on administrative leave. I was given 2 options: resign quietly with a severance package or face public dismissal. I chose to walk. That afternoon, I packed up my things in silence. No goodbyes. No tears. Just numb fingers and empty eyes. As I stepped into the elevator, James called me. I did not pick up. He texted. Let me explain. Please. I turned off my phone. That weekend, I went back to Tasha's. She sat with me while I cried. She brought me tea. She ran her fingers through my hair like I was a child again. She never said, "I told you so." I needed that. 3 weeks passed before I heard from James again. He showed up at my door, unshaven, exhausted, and holding flowers like they would fix anything. I let him in. He told me he had been forced to resign too. That his reputation was ruined. That his wife had seen the footage and filed for divorce out of spite. I asked why he had come. He said he did not care about the job. He cared about me. That word, care, hit me like a slap. I asked him why he never told me how dangerous it could get. He said he never expected to fall for me. And just like that, everything I had buried rose to the surface. I screamed. I told him he was never mine to fall for. That this had started because I needed to hurt someone. That he had just been collateral damage. He stood in silence. Then he asked the question I had been avoiding for weeks. Do you love me? I stared at him. And for the first time since this whole thing began, I told the truth. No. I do not love you. I do not even love myself. He nodded. Put the flowers down. And walked out. That was the last time I saw him. It has been 6 months since everything ended. I moved to a smaller apartment on the other side of the city. I took a job at a smaller firm. Lower pay, fewer responsibilities, no power dynamics. I spend more time alone now. I go on long walks. I write in a journal. I do not date. I do not drink. I just try to understand who I became, and how. Sometimes I still see Chris in my dreams. Other times, I see James. But mostly, I see myself. The girl who slept with her boss. The girl who burned it all down. The girl who thought revenge would make her whole again. I am not proud of what I did. But I do not regret it either. Because for once, I stopped waiting to be hurt, and started choosing the fire. And even though I got burned, at least I was the one holding the match.